Today we're going to be starting a project, and this project is going to be a 2-day project, so you have today and tomorrow to work on this. This video I'm going to go over step by step how you complete this project and kind of give you some more details on each concept that's involved with it. And I'm going to go through the directions first to make sure that you fully understand them. Alright, so step 1, I've given you guys all graph paper, so you need to create a graph on that paper. You're going to create 4 quadrants on there, and you'll need to draw a pre-image of a picture that has 10 to 15 points involved in it. You can do more points than 15, but it's going to be a bit more work than you. You need to have a minimum of 10 points. You can't have less than 10. And your pre-image needs to have a little bit of detail in it, and it can't just be like a circle or a square. It also cannot be symmetrical, so it cannot be the same if you fold it in half. It needs to have some distinction between the two sides. Your pre-image needs to be completely inside one of the quadrants. I don't care which quadrant you decide to start in. It is your choice. You're more than allowed to use any of the 4 quadrants to start your picture in. So step 1, you're going to create your graph, draw your pre-image, and place points at all of the vertices. And you're going to list those points in ordered pairs on the transformation summative activity chart. So I have my graph paper here. I went ahead and I drew in my x-axis and I labeled it. Each unit, each block will be 1 unit. And then I drew in my y-axis also. And again, each block is going to be 1 unit. And I decided to draw my pre-image here. So I drew my pre-image here. And I'm going to label this one pre-image so I know where I started. And now I need to go through and I need to label all of my vertices. So anywhere that 2 lines or 3 lines intersect needs to be labeled with a point and a letter starting with letter A. So I'm going to start in this bottom corner here, and I'll call this point A. And then I'm going to go around counterclockwise. So here's my next point, so that's going to be point B. This one here is going to be point C. Now that I've finished labeling all of my points, I'm going to move on to my worksheet and I'm going to fill in the ordered pair for each of these points. So I have my pre-image over here, and I'm going to go through on the pre-image column and I'm going to fill in the ordered pair for each of these points. So starting with point A, I have point A here, so I'm going to start at the origin. I go over 2 on the x-axis and then 2 up on the y-axis. So the ordered pair for point A is going to be 2, 2. Then I'm going to do the same thing with point B. So starting at my origin, I go 1, 2, 3 right on my x-axis, so that's positive 3. And then I go up 2 on the y-axis, so positive 2. I'm going to go through and complete this with all of my points. Now I've gone through and I've listed out all of my ordered pairs for every point that I have on my pre-image. And I want you guys to take note of points H and points I. So when we look at my image, points H is going to be halfway between the 3 and the 4. So when I look at that point, I'm going to have to go to 3.5, that middle point there, and then come up to 7 to get that point. Same thing with I. So I'm going to go, starting at my origin, right 3, and then we go up to the 6th, and then I go a little bit past, so it's going to be about 6.25. So keep in mind you can have points that are not exactly on whole numbers, but it's going to be a little bit harder to work with if you have decimals, but that's completely okay if you have a couple mixed in. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. Alright, now that I have this completely colored, I'm going to take a colored pencil or a marker of some sort and I'm going to trace this out with one color. Alright, so I've completed my pre-image and I have it colored in with purple and all of my points are labeled. Now I'm going to go back to my instruction sheet. So once my pre-image is done, I'm going to accurately translate, reflect, and rotate my image. And I'm going to go over that. So I gave you guys a reference sheet. So this reference sheet here. So when we have a reflection, there are going to be two types of reflections that you can use. And I don't care which you choose to do, either one. So the first is going to be a reflection over the x-axis. So what that means is if I have my image here, my x-axis is going to be down below, right? This one here. So that image would take and flip over that x-axis. It'd be laying down in this quadrant here, and it would like reflect over. So if you took it, picked it up, and flipped it over that axis. Okay? The second option is going to be a reflection over the y-axis. So that's if we took this image and flipped it over that y-axis and put it in this quadrant. So you can choose whichever one of these two that you would like. Does not matter. Today I am going to choose to reflect it over the y-axis. I'm going to go back to my sheet. So my second column here says reflection over blank axis. So what I chose to do is reflect it over my x-axis. So I'm going to write in x there. And in order to reflect it over my x-axis, I need to take my ordered pair that I start with, my xy, and I need to change it so that all of the y coordinates are going to be negative. So if I take my first point A, I'm starting with 2, 2. I need to take that 2, 2, and I'm going to change it so that it's x negative y. So x is 2, that stays the same, and my y becomes negative y. So if y was 2, it's going to become negative 2. And I'm going to take my entire list of points and I'm going to go through and make it so all of my y coordinates become negative. That is going to force it to flip over that x-axis. So we're going to take x, y, and change it to x, negative y. So if I look at point B, I have 3, 2. So it's going to be x, my x was 3. Negative y, my y was 2, so it becomes negative 2. And I'm going to go down this whole list doing that with all of those. So now I have gone through and all of my points, all of the y coordinates are now negative. So I'm going to go ahead and go plot these all on my graph. And if I had wanted to reflect this over the y-axis, you would do just the opposite. So we would take our ordered pair xy and it would become negative xy. So you can do either one you would like. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to my picture and I'm going to plot all of these points here. So starting with my first one, I have 2, negative 2. So starting at the origin, 1, 2, negative 2. And I'm going to label that point A so I don't get confused as I go. Then I have 3, negative 2. So 1, 2, 3. Negative 2, so this one here is going to be point B, and I have 3, negative 4, so over 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4, that's point C. Alright, so I went through and I plotted all my points, and if you look at my picture here, you can see that my house was like it was picked up and flipped over that x-axis. So if all your points are correct, you should have it perfectly flipped over that axis. Now that my image looks okay, I'm going to go through and draw an arrow here, showing that this is the direction I did. And then I'm going to label this as reflection over x-axis. And I'm going to pick a different color than the one I started with, so it can't be purple. And I'm going to go through and fill this in. Alright, so looking at my paper now, I have my pre-image, and then if you follow my arrow, it went and reflected over the x-axis, and I colored this all in blue, and all of my points are labeled. So then we're going to move on to our next column. Next column is going to be a rotation, so we're going to go back to our reference sheet. And if we look at rotation, There are two types of rotations you can use. So the first one is going to be clockwise, so that's going to the right. So we had a clock, it's going this way. And then the other one is going to be counterclockwise, which is going to be the left, going the opposite way. So it would be going this way. Okay? And whichever one of these that you use is going to depend on what type of reflection that you did. So if you reflected over the x-axis, you're then going to use clockwise because you already started going in this direction. So you're going to keep going in that clockwise direction. If you reflect it over the y-axis, then you're going to use counter clockwise because you already started going in that left direction. So if we look at my picture, my arrow is going down. I started in the top right and I'm going in that right direction. So that's going to be clockwise. If I had originally taken this image and reflected it over the y-axis, I would be going this way, which would make me going left, so I would do counterclockwise. But in this case, I'm going to do clockwise. So we're going to look at the rule for clockwise. If I have my coordinates x, y, in order to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, I need to take and rewrite my ordered pair as y, negative x. So if I look on my sheet, we're going to reference the column before. So from our reflection, we're rotating our reflection 90 degrees. I'm going clockwise. So I'm going to take this ordered pair. I have 2, -2, my x, y, and I need to change it to y, negative x. So 2, -2. My first coordinate I'm writing is my y. My y coordinate is -2, so that one's going to come first. And then my second coordinate is going to be negative x. And in this case, my x is 2, but it needs to be negative, so it's going to become -2. And I'm going to go down and do that for every single one of these coordinates. So 3, -2. My y is -2, so that becomes my x. And then I need negative x. So if x is 3, it's going to become -3. 3, -4. So I need my y first, so -4. And then I need negative x, so that's going to become -3. Now that I've taken and rotated my picture, so I've technically rotated all of these points 90 degrees clockwise, I'm going to take and plot these points on my picture. So my first one is going to be -2, -2. So starting at the origin, -2, -2. Plot that point. That's going to be point A. -2, -3. So -2, 1, 2, 3. Point B. And you're going to keep going on plotting all of these points. Okay, so you can see that I finished plotting all my points and labeling them. So from this image here to this image here, my picture was taken and rotated 90 degrees to the right. So this bottom piece is now on the right hand side, the right hand side is now on the bottom, my top that was on the bottom is now on the left side, and that side of the house is now on the top. So it's completely rotated. So now we want to take, once your image looks okay, you want to make sure that it actually rotated. Once this looks okay, I'm going to take and draw in my arrow so I can see which direction I came from. And I need to write in what I did to get this image. So I did a rotation 90 degrees clockwise. And then you want to go through and again, just drawing over it like we did in these two with a different color than purple and blue that I already used. So the last column that we are going to be doing is going to be our translation. And there's going to be 4 directions that you can move during a translation. So translation's when we physically pick the item up and move it. So if we wanted to move to the right, we're going to just add however many units to the right we want to move to our x-coordinate, each of our x-coordinates. If we wanted to move to the left, so going opposite, so if we wanted to move our image, pick our image up and move it to the left this way, we need to take and subtract the same number we're moving it from each x coordinate. If we want to move our image upwards, that's going to be a change in our y coordinate. So we're going to add however many units we want to move it upward to each of our y coordinates. And then if we want to move it down, we're going to take and subtract that same number of units we want to move it down from each of our y coordinates. So looking at the project that I have for my translation, I need to move my image from this quadrant here up to this image, to this quadrant. So I need to move mine up. Okay, so up is the direction. If I need to move it up, I need to add however many units I want to move it up to my y coordinate. So my x and y are going to change to, x is going to stay the same. My y, I need to add on however many units I want to move it up. So right now, the lowest unit I have is -5. So I need to at least move it up 5 units to have the bottom of my picture in this quadrant. So that'll leave it along my x-axis. So I need to add at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units up. So I'm going to pick 7. I'm going to add 7 so that it doesn't lie on that x-axis. So what I'm doing, I have each of my points from when I rotate it. I'm going to take all of those ordered pairs. My x coordinate is going to stay the same. My y coordinate, I'm going to take and physically add 7 to it. So this is going to be -2. X stays the same. My y is then going to become -2 plus 7. So -2 plus 7 gives me a +5. So this is going to be x comma y plus 7 so that I can follow that along. Then I am going to go to my next ordered pair, so I have -2, x stays the same. I take my y coordinate, which is -3, and I add 7 to it. -3 plus 7 gives me +4. And I go through and do this with all of my ordered pairs. Now that I have gone through and filled out all of my coordinates by adding 7 to each of my y values from my rotation, I'm going to go ahead and plot these points. So I have -2, 5. So -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Point A. -2, 4. So -2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Point B, and so on until you've plotted each of your points. Now that I've gone through and plotted all of my points, you can see it looks like I took this image here, physically picked it up, and moved it 7 units up and put it in this quadrant. So once your image is all good, it works out, we're going to draw on that arrow again to show the direction we are coming from. We're going to label this that we did a translation. Last thing we need to do, pick another color other than the 3 you've already used. Go ahead and trace everything and label those points. Your final project needs to have each quadrant a different color. You need to have arrows showing the direction of your transformations, and I need each of the transformations labeled, including your pre-image. Please make sure you are referencing the direction sheet when you think you're at a complete to make sure you have hit all of the requirements. You also need to submit this paper completely filled out with all of your points, and I will be checking. So I need both of these 2 pages submitted for your final project.